At the end of the day, what drives every one of us is, I think we're now at 325 people between our two studios, and that's 325 families, family of one, family of six, whatever that is. And a studio is made up of people, not the other way around. So what drives every one of us every day is trying to make the best decisions we can make to maintain stability in a studio. And we've done a pretty good job so far. We've never had a layoff. Have we changed? We've had to let go of people. We've brought on people, but for reasons that were relevant. But we've never in 20 years had a layoff, and a lot of studios have. I think this is one of those disciplines that, as a studio, we looked early on. We saw both the animation and visual effects studios go through what may have been, I think, a strategic business move, which is to scale for the project. But they were scaling the project within their own camp. It wasn't, we felt binging and purging of your studio. We just didn't see the logic in that. How do you, remedy the brain drain and the chemistry that is created when you build a studio? And for us, early on, we said, how do we avoid having to be in a position where we binge and purge? We just didn't think it was a healthy business model. We wanted to build something that we could sustain our team if they chose to stay with us. And that's one of the reasons that we kept our flux in place. Not only have we kept our commercial business and short form business, but we've continued to build it and thrive. We still do service work in the long form space. We've done the Despicable Me ride for Chris Meledandri over Illumination and a bunch of other work that we love. And then we have our other films as well. Because ultimately, even if we were to say, here's our slate of films, which we have a slate of films, we're set to do 5 films. Things happen. And, if there's a gap, how do you fill that gap? For us, being able to have 3 areas of business, we can maintain that and not have to go through a lot of the challenges that the industry has gone through. And so far, so good. And that's our intention. The other thing I would say is we also early on, again, being in Dallas, which is just this great production community, is that we said, how do we refine and how do we make the process more efficient? And when we, again, going back to the Hasbro, one of the, our bucket of money on that was like $1.50. Is pretty much all we had. And the other impossible thing was the length of time. So we said, well, how do we work with the end in mind? How do we deliver this? If we know this is the delivery, let's create that and reverse engineer it and break it down into bite-sized chunks, manageable chunks that allows us to get to the end. That's oversimplifying it. But ultimately, that idea led to a software program that we call Insight, which it's a production management tool. That's a very, very vanilla way to describe it. But it's more than a production management tool. It's our infrastructure of our studio. It's the manner in which we push everything around digitally. How we communicate, all of our timesheets, everything's digital. So everything about the studio and everything about every project is run through Insight. What that does is it eliminates the efficiencies in the traditional production process, especially in animation. There's days that people in larger studios, and a lot of our partners came from the larger studios. The animation process is one where you may be working on a shot, but you're not aware that it's been cut, until 2 days later. Or, you're framing it, and why are you working on this bottom part of the frame or on the foot for 5 days? And that's never going to be seen in the final film. If you take all of those, and I call it death by 1,000 cuts, that's why films are so expensive, is that there's a lot of waste in that. So we looked at Insight, and we put millions of dollars into it. We've got a team that's about 7 people full-time. That's all they do, is continue to evolve this software for us. And what it does is it allows us to instantaneously see our film at any stage. I can dial it up on my iPhone or any computer worldwide. It's fully encrypted. And instantaneously, I can see the latest cut of my film. I can see every iteration. I can look at all the notes. I can see it as it's happening. If I'm watching something and I refresh and the cut changes, I'm going to see it. while we're watching the evolution of the film go. On the other side, or on the right side, let's say that's the right side of the brain. On the left side of the brain, I'm also seeing my buckets of money go down. I'm able to see every dollar being spent. I'm able to see my production progress. So that's like the dashboard. So for us, that is the lifeline of the studio. That if we see anything, alarm's going to come up. Why is that shot being held up? Oh, it's because the modeling guy's out today, he's sick. Well, in the traditional process, if you don't have that visibility, 20 guys are working on a shot with the wrong model. If we change the model, put in an insight, you hit a button, automatically and sends emails out to everybody working on that shot saying, hold on, there's a new asset, it loads it up. Again, oversimplifying it. That's just a tool. There's a tool that we employ that nobody really had. There's great production management software tools that kind of sit on the top, let's say, and there's some great features in that. For us, it goes a lot deeper. It allows us to maintain that end in mind and always be looking at it. The compass is being pulled out creatively and also production-wise, and we can stay on budget. And so for us, it was about how do you use tools that you have or processes that help you avoid a lot of the challenges that are currently happening. If anybody says they're fully satisfied with anything they've ever done, then they're not telling you the truth. I don't care if we have a $1 billion blockbuster, there's still going to be something that you will have wanted to do different. Let me say it this way. Are we proud of it? Absolutely. Are we satisfied that we got our first film? Absolutely. It was an incredible film. It was done with a lot of challenges. We moved the date up an entire year because we needed to take advantage of a slot that came available. And that's incredible pressure, not only in the production studio, but also in marketing and everything else. But strategically, again, the way we look at ourselves is, we don't want to be a big cruise ship or a Titanic that can't be nimble enough to change and move instantaneously. We want to maintain that ability to move quickly. And this was an example of the Freebirds was actually supposed to come out this year. Of course, it would have been in the can, so we really only cut a few months off of our production schedule, but still that's a few months off our production schedule. And that was incredible pressure on Jimmy and the team, no doubt. And they delivered. And the movie's awesome. At the end of the day, 20 years ago, we said, we're going to make an animated feature film. And here it is. And whether you want to call it a base hit, a second base hit, we delivered a solid movie, solid results, and we're very, very proud of it. And the entire studio is. And we have, it's a perennial. It'll continue to be seen. And so we were there. Now we've put our stake in the ground. And now we're about to put a bigger stake in the ground. And that's part of what growing is making whatever you do next, make it better than what the one was before you. And so now we have Book of Life. Immediately that weekend when it came out, and Relativity Media was our distribution partner on it, and they really stepped up and really delivered on that film. I think we had about 33 million in foreign pre-sales already lined up for that film, which is very solid. The thing to keep in mind here is we put a stake in the ground in a couple ways. Is that we deliver our first film against a lot of obstacles, a lot of odds. We don't have a deal with any studio. We're still independent. We choose that for a variety of reasons. But secondly, we delivered a movie in the $50 million range. All of our movies will be in the $50 million range. Chris Meledandri and Illumination, those guys are delivering incredible films. I mean, Chris is Chris. And by the way, Chris is one of the, if there are people that we met in this business, there's several of them that we can meet. Bill Joyce, Chris Meledandri was one. Chris Tafari over at Warner Brothers as well. All people that sometimes there's a lot of luck, by the way, in everything we do. I'm kind of digressing here, but there's also that luck in meeting the right people that see something in you, and don't even have to give you the time of day, but ultimately are so passionate about what they do. When they do see that, they support you in a lot of ways, and those are just three examples. There's a lot more of them that supported us, but for us, we looked at what Chris was doing over there, but we also looked at the industry making $150, $180 million movies. I said, man, you gotta just crush it. That's how do how can you be profitable? How can you make a movie and really see it? So we said, how do you lower the risk of that? And we defined it at a $50 million range. That wasn't theory. We didn't just pick that number out of the air. That was based upon 20 years of our studio refining that groundwork in our studio of understanding really what it took for us. We weren't the only we were comparing it to was the big budgets. And ultimately, we even at some stage said, well, maybe we can do it for 30 or 40. The reality for us is $50 million budget. That's a pretty big stake in the ground. And, when you look at Freebirds, every dollar is up there. When you see the Book of Life come out and what we've created there, it's going to blow your mind. I hope it blows your mind. It's blowing my mind. And it's amazing what Jorge's vision is up there, and the artists are delivering something that is truly unique visually. There's never been a movie like this before, and the price hasn't gone up. We declared that at 50, and then our next movie is going to be 50. And the reason we're saying that is all of this experience and all the groundwork that we've laid, all the insight, the way our artists think and lead their own output has to do with that price point. My favorite thing to do is to go and hang out with the artists. And I'm not an artist, but I would say that I'm, one of their biggest fans. I just look at what they do and look at the creativity and the satisfaction I get is if we can maintain an environment, and it's never perfect. You're always trying to change. We have a kind of a theme I like to go on is everything we do today is wrong tomorrow. So if you wake up tomorrow and it's right again, great, but it's going to be wrong the day after that. And the idea is that's not a negative look at things. That's a healthy look at. Don't get too precious about the process. If it needs to change it, and don't get comfortable. If you get comfortable, you die. And in our studio, even now, we've defined this model that is outputting hopefully films that have some sort of meaning to them, that change people's lives, that impact and makes them laugh. If that's it, if we've made somebody laugh, that's awesome. But ultimately, we're already working on our next evolution. How do we change that model? And the greatest satisfaction I have is that in that process, if we maintain not the still stagnant pond feel, but the babbling brook, throwing rocks in the river to create noise, I guess using the big current business term of disruption, we're self-disruptive. We try to do that every day. We try to change it. And if you're wrong, just change it back. And we've been wrong a lot. We'll continue to be wrong, but be wrong in small moves rather than big ones. And so the satisfaction is at the end of the day when the artists are bringing their families to take a look at film that they worked on, and they're proud of it. That's pretty cool. There's a whole story that maybe we should talk about sometime. Matt was part of that when it could have gone a different direction. It was a little safer, a different style. And that was never what we envisioned and never what Matt envisioned. And we conspired in a sneaky but also a positive way to show a different way of doing things. And Warner and all those guys instantaneously said, yep. So, it's all about, for us, there was a big risk there. That's one thing I would say is that we are risk takers, but we're not frivolent. We're not, crazy in the head risk takers. Strategic risk. If you don't take a risk, you don't get the reward. We don't want to be safe. And in those shorts, there could have been a ton of slapback to us. I mean, we knew that we were jacking with something that all of us grew up with. And if we messed it up, and we watched the chatter, on the internet, and they were like, oh, we said, we've got to hit it. We've got to get it right. And ultimately, when Matt was, Matt's such an incredible director, so patient and so collaborative, and being the guy that draws himself, when we said, well, what is it about these that reach out, that make people love Looney Tunes outside of the fun, crazy violence? That it's, if you froze any of them in the frames, it kind of felt like a Viewmaster, and was the clicking point for all of us. Is that not only the Viewmasters were three-dimensional, but also there was kind of that palette of very just the style and the color choices. We said, we've got to make it look like that. And arguably, when they came out, it was 95% was positive, even from the fanboys. Every once in a while, you'd get a little snarky comment, but that's just the industry. But it was one of our great moments, and again, one of the moments that we were able to establish ourselves. Back to Chris Meledandri again, not name dropping. We'd released our first one, and Chris actually called. He was with Despicable Me doing the press junket. I think he was in Japan. I got a call from him. Of course, I was nervous, and he called as just appreciator of good stuff, and he commented on how awesome the short was. And he called Matt as well. That shows you the kind of character that guy has, to be able to take a moment and say, that was really fun. And so again, being able to communicate that back to the leadership team, the artists that did it, that's like gold. Because really that's what you do art for other people to appreciate it. And when you see the Book of Life, which comes out October 17th with 20th Century Fox, Guillermo del Toro's executive producing on it, he's been very involved in it. But Jorge Gutierrez, who's our director, he directed El Tigre and El Macho. We took a risk on him, but he also took a risk on us. He was a first-time feature director, but he delivered all this amazing content for Cartoon Network in this world, and his concept for the film was very easy for us to understand. It was edgy. It was beautiful. If you look at the artwork, the concept art, the two pieces, of course, that you guys showed as well, that were broke. He said, he had one edict. He said, I need it to look like the art. I've seen so many art of books for films, and look at the art of book, and then you see the film, you're like, oh, if the concept art, would it just, and we've always said that. We said, oh my God, that was beautiful. Why didn't it just go? And it just didn't translate. Doesn't mean the movie wasn't great. The movie was great. It's almost like if you hadn't seen the art of book, the movie was amazing, but the art of book takes it just even further. And he said, we need to make our film look like the art, as if the people. And we think we've achieved that. Technically, we had to do some things, and that's what that film's going to deliver. And we're excited for everybody to see it and see the first trailer, which will be coming out soon. And so, first of all, completely professional, completely welcoming, and also having a Porsche as your car that brings you around. That's pretty cool. But I will say the people here have been incredibly, you can tell everybody's passionate about this industry. Thomas, who's the student guide with me, showed me his reel just actually before I came in here, and I was blown away. I had to show it 3 times. What I love about what is happening here is the outreach to youth and students in the colleges, and some of the emerging artists that are just so talented. It keeps an older guy like me on our toes, but in a good way. But I look at that, something like Thomas and what he just showed me, and he's innovating in his world, and you see that throughout FMX. And there's a lot of my peers, people that Chris Tafari is here, and he again was one of the guys early on in our life as a studio that took the time to get behind us and say, hey, we did some Looney Tunes shorts with Chris Tafari that went theatrically. Matt O'Callahan was the director on it, and that was one of those experiences. We kind of pitched the idea. He had already been thinking about the idea, and we kind of came together, and long story short, he moved it into the right direction, and we collaborated with him on those shorts some time ago. And that was one of the other, in our life of studio-changing moments, the Looney Tunes shorts that we created allowed us as a studio to take a beloved character and breathe life into it in CG and also in stereo, and get accolades. The best accolade was from Chuck Jones's estate, from his daughter, and who said, if my dad was here, that's the way he would have done it. If you say, what am I proud of? When I can hear that as a business development guy, and I turn around and tell my artists that there for them is, the biggest piece of news I could have ever. I felt like Santa Claus saying, here's Linda Jones saying this about your work. That's cool.